You can sing along with us if you catch the melody. I, 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 Welcome, everybody. Today we are gathering to honor and remember the life of Dr. Hal Birenboim, a man whose care for others led him to touch so many lives. As a doctor and a veteran, as a husband and a father, uncle and grandfather, and as a friend. His life of 94 years was so full of adventures and loves and losses that we can't tell every story at this single service, but in lifting up his accomplishments, his relationships, and his character, we hope today to remind ourselves through his example of what it means to live a life of meaning, love, and resilience. So we're going to begin with a song that's a favorite of people who have spent a lot of time in Colorado. Esa Einai. I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from the one maker of heaven and earth. Ein mein Yavo Ezri, Esainai, Esain, mein Yavo Ezri, Ezri, mein Adonai, Ose. Shamayim Varetz Ezri Meim Adonai Ose Shamayim Varetz. I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where does my help come? I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where does my help come? My help comes from the one maker of heaven and earth. My help comes from the one maker of heaven and earth. So now we'll have a few words about Harold Birenboim, and I have the honor of beginning. Dr. Harold Birenboim, known as Hal, was born in Kansas City on May 31st, 1931, the youngest of three. And I'm told that he was pampered by his older sisters and parents who loved him dearly and whose affections planted in his heart a great capacity to care for others. As a student, Hal soon proved himself to be exceptional, graduating from high school at the age of 16 and moving on to attend Washington University and medical school in Missouri and Kansas. After med school, he volunteered for the Navy as a ship's doctor and served in Japan, Seattle, and San Francisco. And that's why the flag is here for us today. This was followed by a fellowship in endocrinology at CU Med School, which brought him to Colorado. So I want to talk first about who he was as a doctor. Dr. Hal Birenboim was the kind of doctor that we all hope to have. He cared about his patients as whole people. He took as much time as each one needed. And even though this meant that sometimes he was behind schedule, his patients loved him for it. When the medical system began to shift over time to more corporate structures and bureaucracy, he insisted on continuing a small, independent practice. And perhaps that's why he ended up being the doctor to such a wide range of patients, including a gang of local bootleggers back in the day. Hal's care for others was most of all present in his family life. Marcy, you were the love of his life, sharing 51 years of marriage together. It's a good thing he was persistent. You told me about how you hung up on him the first time he called. And after another 6 months, you finally said yes to a plan, but then you were sick. When he called daily to check in and make sure you were okay, you began to take him more seriously. And by the time you finally went out for Mexican food, you already felt you knew each other. But still, you had to be sure he was going to build a positive relationship with your kids from a previous marriage. This test he passed with flying colors, and before long, you had a blended family with Jeff and Eric, Devra and Aaron, in different household configurations during different chapters. Hal was a loving father to all of his children, a good father, whether he was teaching the boys about shaving and neckties or honesty and taking responsibility. Unfortunately, Hal had to endure one of the most painful human experiences when his daughter Devra was tragically killed in a motorcycle accident at a young age. The loss was devastating, and it took time to heal and embrace the joys of life again. But eventually he did. Over the years, Hal once again came to enjoy so many of life's delights: food, travel, dogs, music, learning, hiking, tennis, ping pong, chess. He relished these experiences with passion and brought a great sense of humor wherever he went. Though Hal was not a religiously observant person, his Jewish path was an important part of his life. In fact, Hal's connection to Jewish community is part of how I came to be here today. Hal was among the circle who learned with some of the inspiring early leaders of the Reconstructionist movement of Judaism, and he and others laid a foundation for the fledgling Reconstructionist community in Denver, which later became B'nai Havarah, the synagogue where I now serve as a rabbi. Hal's Havarah, or a group of friends, support and has been an important source of friendship, support, and meaning over the decades, whether it was celebrating his 90th birthday a few years back or putting together the Shiva gathering that we will be holding in our building later today. More than anything, Hal was a person who cared about others. Eric, when we sat down to reflect, you said he was always the nice guy in the room, exceptionally kind and caring. As a son, a brother, husband, father, uncle, grandfather, doctor, and as a friend. Whether through his service to the military, his service to his patients, or his love of his family and friends, Hal Birenboim was a role model who made a positive impact on many, many lives. As we remember him today, may we find inspiration to give as he gave, to laugh as he laughed, to love as he loved, and may his memory be a blessing to us all. Amen. So I'd now like to share a few words that Marcy has given to me on her behalf, and a poem also that she wanted to be read at this occasion. So this is Marcy. I'm now Marcy. Harold and I maintained a relationship of unconditional positive regard throughout our marriage of 51 years. Our journey was mostly joyful. Along the way, we were challenged to support one another through some very sad or bad times, including the loss of his beautiful daughter, Deborah, and my many physical difficulties. I'm thankful for the level of love and support we were able to share with each other through these times. We also enjoyed many adventures, travel to exotic places, seeing amazing things together, meeting wonderful people along the way, enjoying meals, romantic times, and sharing special memories. Our most difficult challenge came about when he was diagnosed with dementia 10 years ago. This was devastating news. It was scary. It brought about uncertainties. At that time, we committed together to be with each other through this adversity as well. I have not only learned how to live physically without him as his condition declined, I've discovered how to best meet his needs throughout the many changes he has endured. I have loved him through those changes. And I've been blessed to receive whatever level of love he could share. My final gift to him is to honor his wish for his plans for his inevitable death. Today is a reflection of how he wanted to be remembered, and to allow those he loved to remember him. I will love and remember him for the rest of my life. Marcy also wanted me to mention her appreciation for the family and friends who've been such an important support, and to the competent staff at Rosemark, where Hal has lived in recent years. Thank you to everyone who's here today and who has been here throughout all these ups and downs. It means a lot. And finally, the poem that Marcy wanted me to share is called, I think it's called Poem of Remembrance. Rest in peace. The meaning of your lives is still unfolding. Rest in peace. In me, the meaning of your lives is still unfolding. Rest in peace in me. The meaning of your lives is still unfolding. Rest. In me, the meaning of your lives is still unfolding. Rest. In peace. In me, the meaning of our lives is still unfolding. Rest. And now I'd like to call forward Hal's son, Aaron, for a few words.
I guess as it's been said in the other things, he was very much a mensch, which he told me, that was the highest thing to aspire to, as opposed to any kind of financial or athletic pursuits. Whenever you were with him, you knew that he cared about you. To be in his company was a gift, whether you were a patient or friend or just lucky enough to have crossed his path. He always met you with warmth and respect. As we heard, as a physician, his practice was unusual. He used to schedule some fairly long appointments and used to tell me that, you never know you're going to find out just by sitting and talking to people for a while. So he would do that. And sometimes he would notice aspects that wouldn't have come out on a traditional, filling out a form or just looking at the numbers on a test. And I remember he even used to draw blood himself. The practice was that small. So, and as was mentioned earlier, it was very strange in that because he didn't like dealing with all the paperwork, that a majority of his patients were either, Medicare, Medicaid on government support, or wealthy enough that, or, insured in a manner that they could choose whoever they want, and they chose him. So I always knew that, his top priority when he went out was to make sure that others around him were happy. I recall in 1977, there was a film that came out that had a lot of buzz around it. And it was described by many people as being unique and transformative as a film. I was unaware of it, but he was confident that this is something that I would like very much and that I would be happy if he took me to see it. He knew that the lines for entry were long, so we arrived a good half an hour before the movie started, way ahead. And this was at the old Cooper Theater. And we went to the back of this long line trying to get tickets. And the people in line said, "Oh, no, we already have tickets. You go into that line over there." So we went into the line to get tickets, which thankfully was shorter. And, after a few minutes, we got back in that long line and wondering why it wasn't moving, because the movie was going to start in about 20 minutes or so, and the line was still there. Turns out that wasn't the line for the upcoming show in 20 minutes. It was for the one in about 3 hours. So he thought, well, maybe we can go get a snack before going there. And yeah, that wasn't going to happen because that line was pretty long. So luckily I had my homework with me and we waited in that line for that whole time. And I probably read about half of Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis. And then when we got into the theater, even though this was, if you remember the old Cooper, I think it was about 2,000 people. And I guess I wasn't very good at counting crowds because we were up there probably around the 1500s. We were way in back of the theater by the time we got in. And it was a big event. And they had remodeled the theater for this event. They put in this new THX sound system. And for better or for worse, I guess we got the pleasure of sitting right next to one of the new surround speakers. So as you probably guessed, many of you know by now, the movie was Star Wars. So although that was not necessarily his bag of tea, he thought it was mine. So he found out about it and took me there. And although I can't say that I was obsessed with that as some of my current friends and colleagues have been, it is certainly interesting that is an obsession of many of my friends and colleagues that I have now. I was never a natural at sports, although he certainly encouraged me in that area. We went out and played catch a lot on the weekends, and I was even good enough at batting that they were looking at putting me on the elementary school team, but fielding and running was not so much, so I didn't quite make the cut there. So it wasn't really until college that I recognized that some of these things that I was doing, as far as the sports, even some of the parties I went to were not really my bag. I preferred hanging around with some of the engineers who also enjoyed speculative fiction and games. And, I found my own place in the counterculture. And although he didn't outwardly express that, I guess he knew that was happening and encouraged me to do whatever it was that made me happy. It's kind of strange because I picked this, I couldn't think of what story I wanted to tell. And that's the story my wife remembers most, was him taking me to Star Wars. And I was certainly impressed by the film. And I find it strange that it's come away part of the lexicon of the culture, that we all talk about the Force and things like that. And C.S. Lewis, not as much. So I think Dad's legacy lives on in trying to live a life of tzedakah in connection with people. And his memory will be a light to guide our lives.
Thank you, Aaron. Now I'd like to call up Jeff, another one of Hal's sons.
Hal. I first came to meet Hal when my mom was dating him. And my brother Eric and I were pretty picky. And if we didn't like somebody that my mom dated, we would express ourselves pretty well. But we came to know Hal as really as Marcy's boyfriend. And we came to like him so much so that I was sitting in the car in the back seat and my mom was driving one time, and I said to Eric, I said, Mom should marry Hal. And so Eric said, well, where would he sleep? And I said, with Mom, you dummy. So after my mom and Hal got married, it took some time to blend our family. And it really took some getting to really respect each other and know each other and all of those things. And Hal did a really wonderful thing. He really let me develop a relationship with him on my terms, not his. And it's amazing because I came to have my own two stepchildren as I married my wife, Shay. And I used the same model and it worked, has worked so beautifully. And it was a gift that Hal gave me that at the time I would have never known, because I thought that Hal was, he's a little awkward and he was different. And so to come forward and offer me that gift was really something. Hal was really funny. And he would get so exceptionally animated when he told his stories or his jokes. But the funny thing about Hal and his jokes, and he would get animated, his face would even get red sometimes. But I think what I came to realize about Hal is he didn't tell those stories or those jokes so that he could get attention or so that people would laugh at him. He did that because he wanted to enjoy the joy with the other people that he was around. And I'll never forget some of the stories that he did, and I can still hear him telling the story and laughing about that. His story, his tales of being a ship's doctor, and being transported to another ship in the Sea of Japan by a wire on a chair. And when the two ships came down, that chair would go in the water. And he said, I darn near lost my life to care for the admiral's dog. And he would just laugh about that, and we would laugh and laugh. He talked about the sheer panic that he had when a nurse told him that there was a patient in a room when he was a resident that was waiting for an enema. The doctor, the patient's been waiting in there for more than an hour. Would you please get in there and serve the patient? So he went in, he conversed with the patient, and he performed the enema, and he said, this patient, he didn't protest, he didn't say anything until the nurse came in and said, doctor, the patient's still in the next room. I'll never forget him telling me that story over and over and over again. He discussed so many funny things. And when I came to move, he would come to visit us and we would take him places and he would meet our friends. And I came to notice something really special about Hal. When he was with a group of people and he was brand new and he was just meeting people, he never introduced himself as doctor, never even told people what he did. He came forward and he wanted to know about them and he asked questions about them and he really made it a point to get to know them. He was never impressed by being doctor, except for when he needed to care for somebody, and then he would ask them questions, but he didn't play the doctor card anywhere he went. I have so many memories of him as grandparent to Eric and my children, my daughter, Jordan. I'll never forget watching Jordan and Hal go out. We were in Myrtle Beach on a little vacation, and he didn't particularly like the water, but Jordan took him out to this little jetty where the water had come around. It was about 98 degrees. There were bugs everywhere, and he sat on that jetty with Jordan for more than an hour. And they came back soaked and dripping, and I'm sure he had a gazillion mosquito bites, but he didn't care. Or when I sat and watched him paint his toenail blue and keep it that way for a week with Jordan. Or when he came to her first birthday party when she had contracted a little bit of a virus or the flu. And he stayed for that he came in for that birthday party. He stayed, he got on the plane. And I kid you not, my mom will tell you, I think he barfed the whole way back home and he was sick for a week. But he wouldn't have missed Jordan's first birthday party for the world. I saw him on the playground with the kids, getting down on his knees, getting just as dirty as he did. I saw him change diapers. I saw him make sure that the girls had entertainment in the house. And then, of course, I saw him share his food with them, which was rare because he didn't like to share food. He was an eater, wasn't he, Eric? there are many stories I could tell about Hal. I think, and I wrote this and I want to read it. In short, to end this, Hal was steady. He was kind. He was a generous presence in our lives. And even in the face of his dementia, his warmth and his spirit remained. At nearly 94 years old, he has left behind a legacy of quiet strength, devotion, and love. And I'm grateful for the time that I had with him, and he'll be deeply missed and always remembered.
Thank you, Jeff. I'd like to call up Eric.
So I have two things here. First is actually from Hal's niece, Judy. So Hal had several nieces from the Kansas City area. They loved him. He loved them. He was really close to Judy. They just had this bond. And so Judy sent this for me to read. So here goes. Uncle Harold, from the beginning of my awareness of him, was surrounded in mystery. My first memories are when he was visiting home from the Navy. From my perspective, when he left home, he went to places unknown to me all over the world. He brought me trinkets, which were so exotic and foreign, it made my imagination run wild. His enthusiasm about travel and learning new things was at the forefront of his personality. He was always so excited to share his travel experiences and wanted me to know everything in detail he learned on these trips. After retirement, he was equally excited about sharing what he learned in his continuing education classes. His life was definitely one filled with adventure and curiosity. My other vivid memories are how much his sisters loved him and how much he loved them. Their faces would always light up when they shared stories of their childhood. Hardworking Saul, that was his father, at the grocery store, giving away groceries to families in need. Sophie helping Saul in the store and working hard in her kitchen. She was an incredible cook. I still remember the taste of her roast chicken and the escapades of Harold's dog, who he trained to ride public transportation alone. Yeah, this was a story that was featured in the Kansas City Star. Sophie, Saul, Rosalie, and Lillian were so proud of Harold. The three couples, Herbie and Lillian, Rosalie and Les, Marcy and Harold, had some golden years vacationing together. There were always hysterical stories that followed each of these trips, which each of them would share from their very different perspectives. Lillian, always happy that they had been together. Rosalie, always complaining about this or that. And Harold, who always had something interesting to share he had learned or done on the trip. They loved repeating the story about Lillian almost getting eaten by an alligator while taking a snapshot. But the most enduring memory that I have of this very close-knit family is how much they loved each other. It gives me solace to picture them all together again. With love and sympathy, Judy. All right, so for myself, you all have a picture of Hal by now. What I will say, yes, he was absolutely a fabulous dad. He was my second dad. He helped raise me. He was a phenomenal poppy or grandpa to everyone. And I think we get all that. But the other thing that we've talked less about is how really colorful and unique he was. He was so much himself, was absolutely amazing. So here's some examples. First one bums me out. So he hated a necktie, even though this beautiful picture of him, like we probably had to, like, kicking and screaming, get him to wear that. He was a bolo tie guy. So I ordered a bolo tie for today, and it had an H on it and everything from Amazon, but Bezos let me down. So thanks a lot, Bezos. But like, he would wear a bolo tie anywhere he went. I think we've underplayed the food thing here. I've never met a single individual in my life that loved food more than him. Examples, he would take like a Vidalia onion because they were sweet and they'd only come out certain times a year, eat it like an apple. One time I made the mistake, we were in New York City together, great trip. We were always traveling around, and we found a place that claimed to be the original Reuben. So he's like, hey, let's split it. And it's like, it's huge. So yeah, let's split it. I literally end up with the crust, and he just scarfs the entire thing. Like he would, like, we'd serve food at the family dinner table. His is just gone. We're still on our salads. Didn't matter what it was, just unbelievable. We went out for ribs one time. He orders a rack of ribs. They bring the rack of ribs. He looks at the waitress and he's like, not enough ribs. Sends it back and we're all like, ugh. But I mean, nobody loved food more than he did. He had this other quirk where, I was kind of big when I was younger and I had big friends and he always wanted things lifted around and they'd always be just ridiculous. But he had this line and he thought he was fooling us, but it was, guys, it's not heavy, it's just bulky. So we're taking these ridiculous things up and down the stairs and cussing and every time, oh, it's not heavy, guys, just bulky, to the point where we're like laughing. The phone, this was a quirk, like as friendly and nicest person I've ever known probably. But if you called, dude hated the phone. So my friends would just dread if he answered because it was just, what? Like, is Eric there? Yeah. So just a quirk of his. But mostly, like, a lot of the quirks were just the humor. Like, again, back to the 70s. 70s were weird. So one time there's this famous tennis player, Billie Jean King, super famous because, just women's rights, right? And she was really terrific, best female player in the world. So she was going to play Bobby Riggs in tennis. So Hal is just a believer that, like, there is no way that this woman's going to beat Bobby Riggs. And he goes up and down Olive Hillcrest, rings every doorbell, bets every woman that he can that Bobby Riggs is going to kick her butt. But he doesn't. But that's what he does. Music. He could play music. He was in a jazz band. He played the clarinet. He could sing. Like, you could tell any song that he loved because he had a unique way of just tapping his leg. And you just knew that he loved it. And then the last thing is humor. So I have to just leave you with this one because probably my favorite indicative humor story of him. So I had this really lovely cross the street neighbor, nice woman. One time her basement floods and it's really bad. Like, they end up having to redo the whole thing. So we go across the street and her husband was good at remodeling and redone the whole basement. And, we come down there like, oh, it looks beautiful. Wow, that's great. And the woman says, yeah, we just thank the good Lord for, helping us get this all back the way it was. Hal stops and goes, shouldn't you be mad at the good Lord for flooding your basement in the first place? Like, that's just the Hal sense of humor. And then the last thing I'd say, which I think you've already picked up on, is the thing that made him the most unique is that he was absolutely nice to everyone and loved everyone. And shouldn't we all be more like that? So that's Hal. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to smile and remember and laugh. So I'm going to turn now to the words of a psalm that is common to Jewish tradition and to others as well, Psalm 23. And I'll just sing a little bit of it and then read it for us in English. Yai, lai, 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 yai. Yai, lai, 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 yai, la, 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 lai. Gam ki elech begei tzalma velo lo yirara la 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 lo yirara ki ata imadi ay 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 lo irara ki ata imadi. You can sing with me, no more words. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai, lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai, lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai, lai. Yai, lai, lai, yai. Yai, lai, la la la, ya la la ya, ya la la ya, ya la la ya, ya la la la. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. And now we turn to another prayer that is said on the occasion of loss all over the Jewish world. El Malei Rachamim. If you're able to rise, I invite you to stand at this time. El Malei Rachamim shochen bamromim. Amtei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina. B'malot kedoshim uteorim kezohar harakia mazirim. Et nishmat Tzvi ben Salve Sofi she'alach le'olamo. Began Eden tehe menuchato. Ana balarachamim, astirehu besetek nafecha leolamim. Utzror b'tzror achayim et nishmato. Adonai hu nachalato. V'yanuach bashalom. Al mishkavo v'nomar, Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Harold Birenboim, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say Amen. You may be seated. Now I'd like to call forward Hal's grandchildren, Casey, Emily, and Jordan, to offer a poem.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember how. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember how.
In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember how.
In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the summer, we remember how. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember how.
In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember how.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember how. When we have joys and yearn to share, we remember how. So long as we live, he too shall live, for he is now a part of us, as we remember how.
So we're going to now turn to the Kaddish prayer. And I'll say a few words about what that's about. I think it's a very beautiful tradition we have. And Joya's going to pass out some cards with the words to the family. And as she does that, I'll just say a couple of things about not the translation of the prayer. The translation, I think, is important, but really isn't the full meaning of the tradition. There's a great comfort in knowing that we don't have to navigate our losses without a map, without a structure to hold us. And for the Jewish people, one of the things we do when we lose someone is to say the words of this prayer. And the other piece about the Kaddish that's a very beautiful thing is that it's a prayer that's said in the presence of community. There's a kind of paradox because as a mourner, there's an obligation Jewishly to say this prayer on the mourner, but there's also a tradition that we only say this prayer when we're in the presence of a quorum of 10 or more, of a minyan, as it's called. And so the whole tradition taken as a whole is a way that I think our ancestors have ensured that none of us will have to be alone when we are in mourning, when we are remembering our losses. So I would like to now invite those who are saying Kaddish. It could be the family who are saying Kaddish for Hal. It could be that I know I'm looking out and I know some of us in the room are also saying Kaddish for other loved ones and are still in that first year or first 30 days of remembering. So anyone who's saying Kaddish, I invite you to stand from the beginning of this prayer and midway through as we reach the community response line, I'll signal everybody to stand if you're able to carry forward the last part of the prayer. So please stand now if you are saying Kaddish for any lost loved one. Yid Gadal, Vid Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma Divrach Yerute, V'amlich Malchute, B'chayechon, Uvyomechon, Uvchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Uvizman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Ulalmei Almaya. Yitbarach V'ishtabach V'itpa'ar V'itromam V'itnaseh. V'ithadar v'it'ale v'ithalal shemei dekudsha berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ja'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. You may be seated. So we'll have just one more opportunity to sing together in this space before we conclude. And before that, I just want to give some instructions for what comes next. First of all, thank you to Feldman Mortuary and to all of you for being here, and to Hal Aqua for being by my side and offering beautiful music this morning. If you would like to continue with the family today, after our service concludes, we're going to be gathering back at B'nai Havra on East Ohio Avenue, 6445 East Ohio Avenue, for a light lunch and then an opportunity to gather for a Shiva Minyan, meaning to sit together, to share memories and stories from our hearts, a little less formal, and to have a few more opportunities to sing and pray together this afternoon. So again, we'll just go directly from here over to B'nai Havra, 6445 East Ohio Avenue, after our final song. And I'd like to call Hal back here. And this is a nigun, a wordless melody that we began with. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Here, everybody. Thank you for being here.